All right, okay, let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome to, well, thanks for joining, first of all, but welcome to our live demo session. So this is a part of a series of demos of our products to show really how our customers use OrdrAI CAASM Plus and our asset intelligence platform for their attack surface management and reducing exposure. So today's topic, as you see on the screen, is about vulnerability management, but more importantly, like how do you cut through all the different noises? You probably have like critical CVEs everywhere. And there's a lot you have to consider to even figure out how to patch or what to do when there is a device at risk. And so we're going to go through, or Preston really is going to go through all that. So my name is David Chen, and I'm the head of product marketing here at Order. And joining me today is one of our amazing sales engineers, Preston Kilburn. You want to introduce yourself, Preston?
Yeah, so happy to meet all of you today. Doing this asymmetric webinar thing, it's always fun and exciting. But let me talk a little bit about who I am and why I know about vulnerabilities. So I spent about 20 years on the other side of the screen watching the webinars, being a practitioner in both networking and SOC capacities, right? So I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in some retail situations, I've worked in a lot of finance situations, and I really felt compelled to come to Order because of the products that we have. Both the CAASM tool, which I'm going to show you today, as well as our more robust platform, Order Protect. What's cool about them is that they're both built on the same data lake. So all of the information I'm going to show you today, we can bundle that up and just push it right into some enforcement. We can do a lot in CAASM, we need more in Protect. But let's talk in the day of the life of a SOC person. So I told you I worked in some big finance companies. So I worked at the second largest retirement company in America, or the United States. And I would always have something like this. So I'm going to share my screen here. And it was always really exciting to come into the office, and this is what I saw. Welcome to the SIEM. I have 11 billion critical vulnerabilities. And it was always really frustrating to try and figure out, at the time we were safeguarding $500 billion. Like, this is super important and everything's red and I don't know what to do. And so I would just go through the list. But what if I told you there's a better way? So I am going to go over here to Order, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit, just in case you don't know who we are. Like David said, we are an asset visibility tool. So see, know, secure. See all the devices on your network and understand any risks or vulnerabilities, and then help to secure those devices using the intelligence that we've given you. So we install across your network. We are agentless, we are passive. So we're going to instrument into your network and deploy a lightweight collector to integrate into on-prem data sources and show you all this information. So because we're talking about vulnerabilities today, we're just going to dive right in and look at vulnerabilities. So where do we get this information? We gather this information from several steps of data collection. The first thing that we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to instrument throughout your network and pull in like all these devices, right? So whether it's desktops, whether it's virtual machines in cloud, whether it's IoT things that we know about, we're actually going to show you all of the devices and all of the vulnerabilities. But we also go a step further. Because we have proprietary and integration methods of understanding both the operating system and the third-party software installed on a device, we can start to prioritize what actually is critical versus what is high, versus what is medium, versus what is low and normal. AKA, as a practitioner, I would love to get to those. Maybe I will, but I definitely need to start with red first. So what I'm showing you here is our vulnerability dashboard. Now, these are broken down by a couple of steps. So I'm just going to switch over here and we're going to look at how Ordr does this, okay? So the first thing you're going to see here is we do a risk calculation and weighting process. So we're going to take into account things like what type of vulnerability is it, right? We're going to look at the manufacturer, what it is, like what model it is, because sometimes model 123 is super secure, but 124 has a new network process that it's running and it talks port 80 to the internet, right? So we take all these things into account. The next thing that we look into, if we have the vulnerability data, is it exhibiting signs of malware communication or command and control, phishing, stuff like that. And any internal communications as well. We are able to gather information about how things are talking on the network and do this. But let's look at stage 2. This is really important, and I want to stress this. We will give you the criticality of a device, but every network's a little bit different, right? If I go into a hospital, maybe the devices where we check people in and the ER and the surgery room, that's the things that we need to maintain. That's like the top level. Whereas if I go to one of our customers is a meat processing plant, right? For them, the thing that we talk about is that it's the salami machine. It runs 24 hours a day. It runs Windows XP. It can never go off. That is the top thing that we have to watch. That makes the most money, right? So every organization is a little bit different, and we give you the ability to set criticality on what matters for your organization. So it's not hard-coded. It gives you that flexibility. And then finally, all of these are set to a risk score. Now, let's talk about layers of analysis, right? And the reason I want to bring this up is a lot of times vendors will just pop onto the scene and say, I got it. I know how this works, and I'm going to tell you everything about your network, and I'm just going to set this for you. And the reality is, security is hard, folks. I mean, we all know this. This is why you're on this webinar, right? And so what we do is based on machine learning and AI. And it's this stair-stepped level of understanding what a device is. Many devices base off of IPs and how things talk on the network. Whereas we're actually going to understand, like, what is this device? It's an IoT device, but sure enough, it's running, Windows CE underneath it, and it's deprecated, and it also has all these vulnerabilities, right? And then we're going to look at all the things up through the stack. So all the communications, any known vulnerabilities, any behavioral violations, and then finally that criticality piece that I told you about. So let's go back into our Ordr CAASM tool and see what that looks like. So if I was to go here and I was going to go into the asset summary, you'll see we have 13,000, almost 14,000 devices in this network. But when I go into the vulnerability dashboard, I only have these 304 things that I need to focus on. And if I look at this, we can break this down even further based on certain other metrics that I may care about as a SOC practitioner or somebody who does vulnerabilities, right? So there are two different ways to look at vulnerabilities. One is, I know this is a real thing, and one is, this might be a real thing, right? And that's broken down here in Ordr discovered vulnerabilities. These are OS or software confirmed vulnerabilities that are level high, right? So if I look at this, I can go through here and I can see all of these things are all related to a CVE. They're all related to something that I am at risk for and I need to take action. Now, the cool part about this is, like I said earlier, we're going to be able to instrument into devices whether they have an agent, whether they have a current agent or not. If they are able to be interacted with by our platform, we can actually show you that third-party vulnerability. So just as an aside, we were working with a customer and they had a network video recorder. And one of the things that popped up during our implementation of this product was the NVR had been sitting in a closet, as they do, right? They don't typically get refreshed that often. And it was running Windows 7, and it had 4 versions of outdated remote desktop software that was still connecting to the internet. It had VNC, it had GoToMeeting, it had TeamViewer, and I think a deprecated version of WebEx or Zoom, right? And what had happened, we did a little research, every 2 years, there's a new facilities company that comes in and does the cameras, right? Well, I don't use TeamViewer. Well, I don't use GoToMeeting. But they never go back and remove the old stuff because maybe they don't care about digital hygiene, and that poses risks to you. How are you going to know about that? So here with this platform, we can show you all of that. So next thing that I want to talk through is, okay, Preston, we've talked about vulnerabilities. Do you integrate with my vulnerability tool? Because I already have something. I already have Rapid7, Tenable, or Qualys. And the answer is yes. So if I go in here, I'm going to close this really quick, and I am going to look for vulnerabilities. So right out of the box here, we have integrations into Qualys, Rapid7, and Tenable. Now what that looks like is a couple of things. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pull up the order scanning job. Now what this is our way to integrate with your vulnerability scanner and push and pull data. Just like we do with CMDBs and ITSM tools, we can do a lot of back-end integration stuff to make your vulnerability scanning processes even better than they are today. So if I look here, and I'm just going to choose, I don't know, Rapid7. We do this with many different tools, all the big 3. We have these 3 different categories here. So I can trigger a vulnerability scan. So if I have some kind of metric of how I want to do a vulnerability scan, let's say every time a consultant comes into my network in this VLAN, we can kick off a vulnerability scan, right? Now, we can include and we can exclude. So what are some areas where you'd want to exclude? We can exclude certain types of devices. We can do certain types of VLANs, certain types of profiles, basically limitless ways that our tool can work with your vulnerability installation to get something that looks like this. Anytime a consultant comes on this network and I don't know what that device is and I've profiled it as, oh, this is a MacBook or a Windows laptop, we're going to scan that thing. But maybe it's a medical device and I'm in a hospital and I don't want to scan that device. Or maybe I already know that it has a certificate and it has an endpoint on it. Don't scan that, right? So we can do all that information. We can build all that logic into these jobs. Boom, there you go. Now, here's one thing that we can do that is also super useful and really cool. Many times, try as they might, the vulnerability scanning tools aren't super great at understanding what a device is or even understanding what operating system it runs. So they're gonna basically, shotgun blast every vulnerability known to man and just, trundle down your network like a tank trying to blow everything up. But the next thing that we can do is we can push assets into your vulnerability suite. Now, what that looks like is we can reconcile some of those things that you have as other or quote unquote Windows with, hey, this is actually Server 2012, and scan it for Server 2012 vulnerabilities. Don't scan it for Windows 7 and Windows XP and Ubuntu vulnerabilities. It's not going to have any of those, right? And then finally, this scan results pull. So now we can pull in those vulnerabilities and really understand, using our logic and your vulnerability program that you already have and likely have tuned well today, what those confirmed vulnerabilities are. But here's the catch. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're using Order or if you are using your vulnerability platform, you now understand what that device is, who uses it, where it is on the network. All of that information is here for you. So when we click on this device, we can understand and get more context of, this is a Dell laptop. Here's where it is in your network. It has CrowdStrike, and we can understand the vulnerabilities that are running on this device. So it's no more, I'm looking in the SIEM and I found this information and I've got to go look in Rapid7 or Qualys and understand what they're saying. All of it is centralized right here for you. We also do a lot of external software scanning and vulnerabilities that are tied into this as well. So now we can move beyond understanding, oh, there's a Windows vulnerability, to tell you, hey, you have a vulnerable version of Adobe Acrobat running on this device, and you should upgrade that. So I am going to pause right there and check with David and team. Do we have any questions from anybody?
Let me take a look. There is a couple, and I'm gonna. I forgot to mention at the front, but please feel free. I think some of you guys have found the Q&A box, but add more in there. Let's see. There's one. I think they may have attended one of our other ones too, and they wanted to talk about the kind of Ask AI functionality and how does that play into the vulnerability workflow.
Great question. So we call this OrdrAI CAASM+. What does the AI mean? So at Order, we've been doing machine learning and AI since before it was cool. Just a quick aside about our three co-founders. We had the gentleman who founded Aruba Networks, one of the original firmware programmers on the Cisco Catalyst switches from back in the day, and a machine learning PhD. And everything that we do is based on ML and AI. And that gives us really awesome scalability. So I can go in here and say, show me all CVS, I need to know how to type today, scores over 8. And it's going to go and interrogate the data, bring it back to us. Now, I just want to hit pause here and talk about all of the ways that we're able to get this data and make your organization safe. And this is important to me. Like I said, I have a lot of stick time in network and SOC operations. And one thing I always think about is, all right, vendor, how are you keeping me safe? Like, what do you actually do? And this is something that's very different that we do here at Order that I'm not sure other companies do. We don't actually expose your customer data to a large language model. We trained our large language model on an empty data set so that when we write this natural language query, right, help me understand these things, it comes back with an NLP query, right? And so that brings us back here. I did a search that wasn't super helpful, but now we understand how it's getting this data. But the important part is we're not just connecting it up to an LLM in the cloud somewhere, leaking your PII, leaking your usernames, all that stuff. Everything that you see here is contained inside your Order instance, and it doesn't get leaked out. So that's super important. So if I go here and I show me all, let's learn how to type. So the AI is going to go through, find facilities devices, and bring us back anything with a CVSS score 8 or higher, right? So here are all of those devices. Now, one thing that's really neat about our AI query here is that we want to make Order the tool that you use across every silo, right? Now, likely most of you are vulnerability folks, you live in InfoSec, but maybe there's facilities people that need to look at this. So that is this quote right here. What I can do is I can just click here and add this widget to whatever dashboard that I want, right? So just some dashboard that I already have, and it gets populated on there. I can change it to however I want this dashboard to look, right? Now, because Order is role-based access compliant, if I have facilities people and I'm tired of them asking me, hey, what PLCs do I have that have a CVSS of 8 or higher that I need to go tell, Siemens to patch? Boom, here you go. It is now off of your requirements as the InfoSec team. You have now enabled them to go do your job, go do your job. I'm going to tell you if you don't patch them, I'm going to know about it, but I don't have to okay, let me pull this report and send it to you. Believe me, folks, I did that for so many years. Can I get a report on this? Can I get a report on that? Let's enable people to just go into a dashboard, do it themselves, or go into OrdrAI and just do the query. So hopefully that's helpful. Anything else, David?
Yeah, you know what? You actually went ahead and answered one of the questions about customizable dashboards. There's another one that's kind of adjacent. It's related to compliance. So do you want to show us how we can help with compliance when it comes to the dashboard?
Yeah. So out of the box, we have dashboard compliances. Now, this here is NIST. We also have some CISA stuff, and we have cloud compliance out of the box, right? So if I go into cloud compliance here, right at the very top, here's my AWS compliance. Here's my Azure compliance, right? I'm not doing very well on Azure. I've got a lot of fails, right? And these are just the moment you integrate with these data sets, we'll start doing this. You don't have to do anything, right? We talked about dashboards, but one thing that I do want to just really, really focus on is when we go in here and we understand these dashboards, these can be scoped down to a site, a location, a type of device. So I can take this dashboard and make this dashboard, I don't know, banking devices, ATMs. I can make this device, if I'm in a higher ed, student devices, something like that, right? All of these are super flexible and very easy to tailor to your subject matter experts. As they come in and use the system, you are going to enable them to go in and do these things. Now, just like we talked about compliance dashboards, one major use case where people are going to want to use Order is, I get audited all the time, and I have these auditors, and they want to ask, do you have a report of this? Do you have a report of that? One thing that's really nice is out of the box, like I said, with that NIST, NIST compliance or, other compliance dashboards, you can literally give your auditors read-only access to this section. They can go in and all of these are clickable. They can go in, understand all of the devices, probably leave you alone and not ask you any more questions. So I don't know how many FTE hours that eliminates, but probably pays for Order, right, if I'm being honest. So anything else, David?
So a couple questions. One, actually, somebody's asking for you to show your slide of risk scores and the layers. I think they found that really helpful. So if you want to, anything else you want to talk about on that slide for a minute here?
Yeah. So if I could get somebody, if you want any further clarification, just interrupt me, David, if they have, if they want more info. Also, if you are curious, leave your email. I can absolutely follow up with you directly. But these are a stair-stepped approach, and all of these are figured in together. So this last screen that we were talking about here, This is just a different abstracted version of this. So it starts again with what is this device, with like concrete understanding. This is a laptop. This is a, this is a Kubernetes device in AWS, right? What kind of communications does it have? If we're receiving flows, we're going to know if it's external or internal. What kind of vulnerabilities does it have? Now, this kind of circles back to that device context, because we're going to know, okay, it's a laptop. It's running Windows 10. It's going to be deprecated. Okay, we've got all these vulnerabilities. It's also more risky because it's going to be deprecated. All these things get, added in, right? So now we'll also add in, depending on if we're having flows, if we understand the third-party software, which most of the time we do, because we have great out-of-the-box integrations and our own techniques for gathering this information, right? We'll tell you, okay, wow, this thing is vulnerable to XYZ. Then behavioral violations, which are not necessarily easier to understand when we're talking about a policy, but within the order framework, if you set something in a policy and it starts behaving a different way, we can tell you like, hey, this thing started doing something that it's never done before. And then finally, that criticality piece that we talked about on this, on this slide, for your organization, maybe you're like, I don't really care about my workstations. They're in my office, they're on NAC, they have EDR, they have MDM, like set those lower. But you know what? Those BYOD devices that I'm letting people use that SaaS app on, make those super critical, because that could be my problem, right? So hopefully that answers that question.
I think so. And actually, there's one more that's about, it's related to like software, install software. So somebody asked, what if my EDR doesn't display software or vulnerabilities? So basically, how do we go about solving that?
Yes, that is a great question. So here in Order CAASM that I'm showing you now, we're actually going to be able to integrate using our own technology. It's called the Order Software Inventory Collector. It is not an agent. It is agentless. We're going to pull that information from those devices that we can get onto. Now, likely, we're going to understand. We brought up that. Get into vulnerabilities here. I just want to highlight this. There's probable, and these are probable. That is, I understand that this is an Amazon Alexa, and based on the things I know about it, it's on operating system 3. I don't know. I'm just pulling that out of the air, right? But where we want to get you to as an organization is this. We have confirmed vulnerabilities, and that comes from using the Order Software Inventory Collector. It comes from integrations with your EDR. Now, the question was, what if my EDR doesn't do that? We can give you that. And that is just included in what you're seeing here. I just want to call that out. We don't charge extra for that. It's part of the platform.
Okay. So, Preston, I think on that note, I think we have a couple slides. I don't see any more questions, and then I think we can wrap it up. So let's go back to the slides for a minute here.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we did have prepared slides, but I felt like you already went through those. So here, let me show you. We had slides kind of visualizing what you already told us, basically, right? With the way we discover, there's part of the platform we do like deep packet inspection, and we also use all the API streams. And then I think you had talked about Order Software Inventory Collector, which is a huge differentiator for us to really get that software type information that you don't always get from your existing tools. And then we classify to make sure that they are exactly like, how do they function? Because you might have 2 running Windows 7. One is a much more critical machine than the other one is just a workstation. The last thing, so anything, actually, Preston, anything you want to add on these 2 slides? And then I've got a couple of resources I want to share with the folks here.
Yeah. One thing that I want to just call out is it's really important to understand what's on your network, right? And a lot of times in the SOC, we feel like I can find it with my EDR, it's fine. It's not going, like, why I believe in order as a platform and asset visibility as a concept is, you know, I hear like, oh, I've got CrowdStrike or I've got Tanium and it tells me all the devices. The thing is, it's going to show you the stuff that it can talk to in the subnet that it can talk to at one point in time. And our solution will actually go through your entire network, even where you're likely not going to have Tanium and CrowdStrike, and show you all those weird machines that Jim from the AV department put in a closet for the Cisco WebEx stack that everybody forgot about. It's real life experience that I got popped on a pen test once because we forgot about something, right? If I would have had a tool like Order, I wouldn't have failed that pen test, right? So it's just super powerful information.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we wrap up here, I do want to, some of you guys may already found the resources section on your dashboard there, but I do want to call them out. So we've already done one that's just general. Okay, how do you take action? All the knowledge and intelligence that Preston just talked about. What do you need? And we had talked about it in our first one. So that's on demand. Same with, we also talked about security and coverage gaps, the way we go by helping our customers solve those issues. Today, obviously, vulnerability management, which we'll send out the recording afterwards as well. And then I would highly, highly encourage you to, in early January, which I know it's weird to think about now, but we have another session about incident response and how we use our CAASM Plus product to really accelerate that process so you don't have to do all that, manual labor to get the information you need. And then the last piece I'll say is we have this attack surface management buyer's guide, and it's not really about order at all. It's just giving you guys better information on what you should be looking out for, what kind of knowledge and intelligence you need, not just about vulnerability management, which we talked about today, but also all the other use cases that we have in our series. So on that note, thanks Preston for this detailed presentation, and thanks everybody for joining. I hope to see you guys in the next one and all our other activities. Really appreciate the time. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Nice to meet you all virtually. What are we doing on webinars? I don't know.
It's okay. They don't the drill. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.